The stars had always been quiet. For thousands of years, humanity looked up at the night sky and wondered if they were alone. They sent signals into the darkness. They built telescopes and satellites. They dreamed of meeting other beings from distant worlds. But the universe never answered Dot until now. Admiral Do-Yoon Park stood on the bridge of the U's Resolve, the largest warship humanity had ever built. He was a tall man with gray hair and tired eyes. He had fought in 3 wars on Earth before the nations united. He had seen death and destruction. He thought nothing could surprise him anymore. He was wrong. The alarm started screaming at exactly 0347 hours. Do-Yoon spilled his coffee as he rushed to the main screen. His hands were shaking, but not from the hot liquid burning his fingers. "Sir," his second officer Yoonji said, her voice barely a whisper. "You need to see this." The screen showed empty space. Then it didn't. Ships appeared from nowhere. One moment there was nothing but stars. The next moment, there were hundreds of vessels. They were massive, each one larger than anything humans had ever created. They were black and silver, shaped like teardrops, and they moved without any visible engines. Do-Yoon counted them. He stopped at 300. "Get me a line to Earth," he ordered. Now, the message from the alien ships came before he could contact home. It played on every screen, every radio, every device on the Resolve. The voice was cold and mechanical, like a machine pretending to be alive. "Humans of Earth, you have achieved faster than light travel. This has been noted. You will present yourselves before the Galactic Council. You will kneel before the 7 arbiters. You will accept your place in the hierarchy of civilizations. This is not a request. This is not a negotiation. This is your only warning. Resistance has never succeeded. You are the 4,217th species to receive this summons." The message repeated 3 times. Then the alien ships went silent on Earth. The world was in chaos. President Yoona Kim watched the message from her office in the United Earth Parliament building. She was a small woman with short black hair and sharp eyes. She had been president for only 2 years. She had dealt with food shortages, climate disasters, and political enemies who wanted her dead. But this was different. This was the end of everything humanity thought they knew. Her advisors filled the room within an hour. Military generals, scientists, diplomats, and politicians all talked over each other. Some wanted to surrender immediately. Some wanted to fight. Some wanted to run and hide. "We cannot win this war," General Minho Beek said. He was the highest-ranking military officer on Earth. His face was pale. "Our entire fleet is 47 ships. They have hundreds of thousands, maybe millions. Our weapons would be like throwing rocks at a mountain. Then we surrender," Foreign Minister Jun Ho-shin said quickly. "We accept their terms. We kneel. We survive and become slaves?" Defense Secretary Harren Yu shouted. "Did you hear the message? They want us to accept our place. That means we become nothing. Our culture, our freedom, our future, all gone." The arguing continued for hours. Yoona listened to all of it. She said nothing. Finally, when everyone was tired and scared and out of ideas, she spoke. "How many species fought back and survived?" The room went quiet. "What?" General Minho asked. The message said, "We are the 4,217th species to receive this summons." It said resistance has never succeeded. But it didn't say resistance never happened. So I ask again, how many species fought back and survived? No one had an answer. Yoona stood up and walked to the window. Outside, the sun was setting over the city. Children were playing in the parks. People were going home from work. They didn't know yet. They didn't know that everything was about to change. If the council wanted us to know that fighting was hopeless, they would tell us about all the species they destroyed. They would show us the ruins of their worlds. They would make examples of them. She turned back to face the room. But they don't. They just say resistance never succeeded. Why? Dr. Sujin Choi, the head of the Xenolinguistics department, raised her hand slowly. She was young, barely 30, with glasses and messy hair. She looked like she hadn't slept in days. Maybe because some species did survive, she said quietly. Maybe the council doesn't want us to know that fighting back is possible. Yuna smiled. It was not a happy smile. It was the smile of someone who had just found a small light in complete darkness. Exactly. She walked back to the table and placed her hands flat on the surface. We will not kneel. We will not surrender. We will not accept our place. Her voice was steady and strong. We will find out what the council is hiding. We will find our own path. And if they want to destroy us for it, then they will have to work for it. General Minho shook his head. Madam President, with respect, this is suicide. No, Yuna replied. Kneeling is suicide. It's just slower. At least this way, we die standing up. She looked around the room at all the frightened faces. I am authorizing the creation of a new program. I am calling it the Defiance Initiative. Its purpose is simple. Find a way to survive. Find a way to fight. Find a way to win. I don't care how impossible it seems. I don't care how long it takes. Humanity did not crawl out of the mud and reach the stars just to kneel before the first bully we meet. The room was silent. Then, slowly, people began to nod. Admiral Do Yoon received the orders 6 hours later. He read them 3 times to make sure he understood. We're not surrendering? Yoonji asked, reading over his shoulder. No, Do-yoon said. He felt something strange in his chest. It took him a moment to recognize it. Hope. We're going to fight? Do-yoon shook his head. Not yet. First, we're going to learn. We're going to watch. We're going to find every weakness they have. He looked out at the alien fleet still waiting in the darkness. And then, when they least expect it, we're going to show them what humans are really made of. The alien ships waited for 3 days. Then they sent another message, demanding an answer. President Yoona Kim recorded her response personally. It was broadcast to the alien fleet and to every human being on Earth and in space. To the Galactic Council and the 7 Arbiters. We have received your summons. We will send a delegation to your council. But we will not come as slaves. We will come as equals. We will not kneel. We will stand. If you cannot accept this, then you do not understand humanity. We have fought each other for thousands of years. We have survived ice ages and plagues and wars that killed millions. We have burned our own world and rebuilt it from the ashes. We do not break easily. We do not give up. And we do not kneel. See you soon. The alien fleet was silent for a long time after the message ended. Then, without a word, they turned and disappeared back into the darkness between stars. Humanity had 6 months to prepare. The Defiance Initiative began that very night. The Council Citadel was the largest structure Ambassador Ji Woo Han had ever seen. It was bigger than planets. It was bigger than anything she had imagined possible. The station floated in the darkness around a dying red star, and its metal skin glowed with the light of 1,000,000 windows. Ji Woo pressed her hand against the glass of her ship and tried to breathe normally. She had trained for 6 months for this moment. She had studied everything humanity knew about the Council, which was almost nothing. She had practiced speeches and learned protocols and prepared for every possible situation, but nothing could prepare her for this. Ambassador, Captain Taiwan Lee said from behind her. He was a soldier, not a diplomat. His job was to protect her. His face showed no emotion, but Jiwoo could see the tension in his shoulders. "We're being hailed. They want us to dock at Bay 7004. 7004, Jiwoo repeated. How many bays does this station have? Unknown. But if they're numbering them in the thousands, probably a lot. Jiwoo almost laughed. Almost thought Dr. Sujin Choi joined them at the window. The young scientist had dark circles under her eyes. She had spent the entire 6-month journey studying alien languages and signals. She had barely slept. I've identified over 300 different languages being broadcast from the station, Sujin said. 300 different species, at minimum. Probably more. Are any of them friendly? Taiwan asked. Sujin shook her head slowly. I don't know, but I've noticed something interesting. Most of the communications are quiet, careful, like everyone is afraid to speak too loudly. The human delegation ship, the UES Horizon, docked at Base 7004, exactly on schedule. The bay was empty except for a single alien waiting for them. It was tall and thin, with gray skin and 4 arms. Its eyes were solid black. I am Coordinator Vesh, the alien said. Its voice was flat and lifeless. I will escort you to the council chamber. You will not speak unless spoken to. You will not look at the arbiters unless they address you. You will kneel when you enter the chamber. Do you understand? Jiwoo stepped forward. She was shorter than the alien by at least 2 feet. She looked up at it without fear. I understand your instructions, she said. I do not agree to follow them. The coordinator's black eyes blinked once, twice. This is not optional. This is protocol. Your protocol, not ours. For a long moment, nothing happened. Then the coordinator made a sound that might have been a sigh. The humans will be difficult. We were warned about this. It turned and began walking. Follow me. Your defiance will be noted. The walk to the council chamber took nearly an hour. They passed through corridors filled with aliens of every shape and size. Some had scales. Some had feathers. Some had no bodies at all, just floating balls of light. All of them stopped to stare at the humans. Jiwoo noticed something strange. None of the aliens looked happy. They moved quickly, with their heads down. They whispered to each other but stopped whenever a certain type of alien walked past. These ones were silver bands around their necks. Guards, maybe? Or masters. They're slaves, Sujin whispered. All of them. These species have been conquered. 842 species are represented in the council, the coordinator said without turning around. All have accepted their place in the hierarchy. All serve the greater order. You will do the same. Taiwan's hand moved toward his weapon. Jiwoo caught his wrist and shook her head slightly. Not yet. The council chamber was enormous. It was shaped like a bowl, with thousands of seats rising up the walls. Each seat held a representative from a different species. They were all watching. They were all silent. At the center of the chamber, on a raised platform of black crystal, sat 7 beings. The arbiters. They were ancient. Jiwoo could feel it just by looking at them. The first was made of living stone, its body cracked with age. The second was a creature of pure energy, flickering like a dying flame. The third was something like a giant insect, but with too many legs and eyes that never stopped moving. The others were equally strange and equally terrifying. Kneel, the coordinator commanded. The chamber went completely silent. Every eye, every sensor, every attention was focused on the small group of humans standing at the center of the bowl. Jiwoo took a deep breath. She thought about President Kim. She thought about Admiral Do-Yun. She thought about every human being on Earth and in space, waiting to hear what happened here. She did not kneel. We have come to negotiate, she said. Her voice echoed through the chamber. the silence became something else. Something shocked and dangerous. The first arbiter, the being of living stone, leaned forward. When it spoke, the floor vibrated with its voice. You stand before the council. You stand before the rulers of this galaxy. And you refuse to kneel? There was no anger in its voice, only confusion, like it could not understand what it was seeing. No species has ever refused. In 12,000 years, no species has ever refused. Then we are the first, Jiwoo said. Laughter filled the chamber. But it did not come from the arbiters. It came from them, from the conquered species watching from the seats above. They laughed because they had to. Because they were afraid. Because they knew what happened to those who defied the council. The third arbiter, the insect creature, clicked its many legs together. You are amusing, little human. But your courage is meaningless. You have 47 ships. We have 47 million. Your entire species could be destroyed before your next heartbeat. What could you possibly offer to negotiate with? Jiwoo's earpiece crackled. Taiwan's voice came through, quiet but steady. Ambassador, we've confirmed it. The data was accurate. The location is real. 6 months of work. 6 months of spies and hackers and stolen information. 6 months of searching for something, anything, that could give humanity a chance. They found it. Jiwoo smiled. It was not a friendly smile. It was the smile of someone holding a winning card that no one expected. We offer you a choice, she said. The arbiters did not respond. They simply stared at her with their ancient alien eyes. For 12,000 years you have ruled this galaxy. You have conquered every species you have met. You have destroyed those who resisted. You have built an empire on fear and obedience. She paused, letting her words sink in. But you have also been searching. Searching for something that you lost. Something that you need. Something that the ones who came before you left behind. The energy of the chamber changed. The conquered species stopped laughing. The guards stopped moving. Even the air seemed to freeze. You know about the architects, Jiwoo continued. You know they ruled before you. You know they disappeared. And you know they left something behind. Something powerful. Something that could change everything. The first arbiter rose from its throne. Stone cracked and fell from its body as it moved. How do you know this? Its voice was no longer calm. There was something else in it now. Fear. Because we found it, Jiwoo said. The thing you've been looking for. The thing you've spent 12,000 years trying to find. We found it first. The chamber erupted into chaos, but Jiwoo just stood there, smiling. While the oldest and most powerful beings in the galaxy realized something terrible, they had underestimated humanity, and they would never make that mistake again. 3 years ago, before the aliens came, Dr. Sujin Choi made a discovery that would change history. She didn't know it at the time. She thought it was just noise. Sujin worked at the Earth Deep Space Communication Center, a small building in the mountains where scientists listened to the universe. Most days were boring. They heard static, random signals, the echo of stars dying millions of years ago. Nothing special. Then one night, Sujin heard something different. It was buried in the background radiation of an empty region of space called the void expanse. Everyone thought the void was useless, just darkness and dust. But Sujin heard a pattern in the noise. A rhythm. A code. She spent 3 months decrypting it alone, working through the nights, telling no one. What she found terrified her. The signal was old. Older than Earth. Older than the sun. It was a message from a civilization that had existed before anything else in the galaxy. The architects thought the message was simple: coordinates. A location in the heart of the void expanse, and a single word that translated roughly as gateway. When the council ships arrived 6 months ago, Sujin finally understood. The council knew about the architects. They had been searching for the gateway for thousands of years. And somehow, by pure luck or fate, humanity had found it first. Now, standing in the council chamber while chaos erupted around her, Sujin watched Ambassador Jiwoo play their only card. "You're bluffing," the first arbiter said. Its voice shook the walls. "No primitive species could find what we could not." "You are lying." 3 days ago, Jiwoo said calmly, our ship, the U-East Pioneer, arrived at coordinates in the void expanse. Dr. Hyunwoo Kang and his team have already begun activation protocols. Back on Earth, President Yoona Kim sat in the command center of the Parliament building. Around her, 50 officers watched screens showing data from across the galaxy. She held a small device in her hand, a simple button that would authorize the next phase of the plan. "Is the feed ready?" she asked. "Ready, Madam President," a technician replied. Yoona pressed the button. In the council chamber, every screen flickered. Every display changed. The images of species and data and maps disappeared. In their place, a single image appeared. It was a ring. The ring floated in empty space, surrounded by stars. It was massive, larger than planets, larger than anything the council had ever built. Its surface was covered in symbols that glowed with soft blue light. Energy pulsed through it like blood through veins. The chamber went silent. "The gateway," Jiwoo said. "Real and operational. The architects built it before your council existed. Before any of your species evolved. They left it hidden, waiting for someone to find it." The second arbiter, the creature of flickering energy, spoke for the first time. Its voice was like fire crackling. "This is impossible. We have searched the void expanse 1,000 times. There is nothing there." "You searched with your technology," Jiwoo replied. "The architects didn't want to be found by species like you. They hid the gateway using methods you don't understand. But they left clues for others. For species willing to listen instead of conquer." On the screens, the image changed. Dr. Hyunwoo Kang appeared, standing inside a control room that looked nothing like human technology. The walls were smooth and organic, covered in the same glowing symbols as the gateway. "Ambassador," Hyunwoo said through the transmission. His voice was shaking with excitement. "We've accessed the primary systems. The gateway is functioning. It leads somewhere we don't know where yet, but the energy readings are off the scale. This technology, it makes the council's ships look like children's toys." The third arbiter rose from its throne. Its many legs clicked against the crystal floor as it moved toward Jiwoo. "You will give us the location. You will surrender the gateway to the council. This is not negotiable." Jiwoo didn't step back. She didn't flinch. No, the word hung in the air like a sword. "The gateway belongs to whoever finds it. That's how the architects designed it. They didn't leave it for the strongest or the oldest. They left it for the bravest, for species willing to take risks." She looked up at the giant insect creature without fear. "You've spent 12,000 years conquering and destroying. You've never had to be brave. You've never had to risk anything. That's why you couldn't find it." The third arbiter's mandibles clicked together in what might have been anger. "You speak as if you understand the architects. You know nothing." "I know enough," Jiwoo said. "I know they disappeared. I know they left the gateway behind. I know they wanted someone to open it. And I know you're terrified of what's on the other side." Silence again. But this time, it was different. The conquered species in their seats were no longer looking at the floor. They were looking at Jiwoo. They were listening. The first arbiter spoke slowly, each word heavy with age. "The architects were powerful beyond understanding. They ruled this galaxy before time had meaning. And then they left. They opened a door to somewhere else and walked through it. No one knows what happened to them. No one knows what they found. But you want to know, Jiwoo said. That's why you've been searching. That's why you need the gateway. Need is a strong word, the Arbiter replied. We are curious. Nothing more. Then why does your fleet move toward the void expanse as we speak? The chamber erupted in whispers. The conquered species looked at each other in confusion. Even the Arbiters seemed surprised. Captain Taiwan stepped forward, a small tablet in his hand. Our long-range sensors detected the movement 3 hours ago. 17 Council warships changed course. They're heading directly for the gateway's coordinates. You plan to take it by force, Jiwoo said. You were never going to negotiate. You were just keeping us busy while your ships moved into position. The first Arbiter didn't deny it. We do what is necessary to maintain order. Then let me tell you what will happen if your ships attack the gateway. Jiwoo's voice was cold now, hard as steel. Dr. Kang has access to the architect's systems. He has learned things in 3 days that your scientists couldn't discover in 12,000 years, including how to destroy the gateway. The screen showed Jiwoo again. He held up a small device. If we detect any hostile approach, Jiwoo continued, we will collapse the gateway. We will destroy it completely. And whatever secrets the architects left behind will be lost forever. Your 12,000 years of searching will mean nothing. You would destroy the greatest discovery in galactic history just to spite us? The second Arbiter demanded. We would rather destroy it than let you use it as another weapon to enslave more species. Jiwoo looked at the conquered beings watching from above. The architects didn't leave the gateway for empires. They left it for explorers, for dreamers, for people who look at the unknown and feel wonder instead of fear. She turned back to the Arbiters. So here is your choice. You can try to take the gateway by force and lose everything. Or you can accept that humanity is not like the other species you've conquered. We don't kneel. We don't beg. But we are willing to work together. We are willing to share what we find. The Arbiters looked at each other. For the first time in 12,000 years, they did not know what to do. And in the seats above, 842 conquered species began to remember something they had forgotten long ago. What it felt like to hope. The Council had not argued in public for 8,000 years. Every decision, every command, every law, all were decided in private by the 7 Arbiters. When they spoke to the galaxy, they spoke with one voice. They were united. They were absolute. Until now. We must destroy them immediately. The 4th Arbiter shouted. It was a creature of water and shadow, constantly shifting and reforming. Send the full fleet. Glass their planet. Hunt down every human ship. End this before it spreads. And lose the gateway forever? The 2nd Arbiter replied, its energy flickering wildly. You heard what they said. They will destroy it if we attack. 12,000 years of searching, gone in an instant. They are bluffing. The 4th Arbiter insisted. No species would destroy such power. They want it for themselves. That is what you would do, the 5th Arbiter said quietly. It was an ancient being, so old that no one remembered what species it had originally been. Perhaps they are not like you. The 1st Arbiter raised a massive stone hand, calling for silence. The chamber obeyed, but the damage was done. Every species watching had seen the impossible. The rulers of the galaxy, divided and arguing like frightened children. Ambassador Jiwoo stood in the center of the chamber and watched. She kept her face calm, but inside, her heart was racing. The plan was working. The council was fracturing. But one wrong move could still destroy everything. Narration moved through the crowd of conquered species like a ghost. She was young, only 23, officially listed as a junior attach. In reality, she was one of humanity's best intelligence officers. Her job was simple: listen and report. What she heard changed everything. The beings around her were whispering. At first, they were careful, hiding their words behind cupped hands and lowered heads. But as the arbiters continued arguing, the whispers grew louder. Did you see? The humans didn't kneel. They found the gateway. The thing the council has searched for since the beginning. What if they're telling the truth? What if the council can be challenged? Mireille pressed her earpiece. Ambassador, I'm getting a lot of chatter. These species, they're not just watching. They're thinking. Jiwoo's voice came back, barely a whisper. Thinking about what? About what happens if we win. Near the main entrance, Captain Taiwan studied the movements of every ship in the system. His tactical display showed thousands of vessels, council warships, transport ships, vessels from conquered species. For hours, they had all followed standard council formation protocols. Now, something was changing. Ambassador, he reported. 17 species have repositioned their ships. They've moved out of council formation. They're not attacking anyone, but they're waiting. Waiting for what? Taiwan looked at the display again. The ships from these species had gathered in loose groups, far from the council's main fleet. They were still outnumbered 1,000 to 1. But they had moved. I think they're waiting to see what we do next. The sixth arbiter, a being of crystal and light, had remained silent throughout the argument. Now it spoke, and its voice was like glass breaking. There is another option we have not considered. The other arbiters turned to look at it. The humans have shown courage. They have shown intelligence. They have found what we could not find. The sixth arbiter paused. Perhaps they are not meant to be conquered. Perhaps they are meant to be partners. The fourth arbiter laughed a horrible, wet sound. Partners? We do not have partners. We have subjects and resources. That is the order of things. That has always been the order of things, has it? The fifth arbiter asked. I am old enough to remember the time before the council. I remember when we were many peoples, separate and different. I remember cooperation. I remember sharing. Those times made us weak, the first arbiter said. Unity made us strong. Unity? The fifth arbiter's voice was sad. Is that what you call it? I call it domination. I call it fear. We did not unite the galaxy. We conquered it. And now, for the first time in 12,000 years, someone is offering us a different path. On Earth, President Yuna Kim listened to the transmission from the council chamber. Her advisors stood around her, silent and tense. It's working, Foreign Minister Junho whispered. They're actually fighting with each other. It's not enough, Yuna replied. Breaking the council isn't the goal. Building something better is. She looked at her communications officer. Open a channel. Not to the council. To everyone else. Madam President? Every species in that chamber. Every ship in the system. Everyone who is watching and waiting. Yuna stood up. It's time to give them something to wait for. The screens in the council chamber flickered again. President Kim's face appeared, calm and determined. To the beings of the Galactic Council. Not the arbiters, but everyone else. The conquered species leaned forward in their seats. The guards stopped moving. Even the arbiters went quiet. We didn't come here to rule you. We didn't come here to save you. We know we can't do either of those things. We're too new, too small, too weak. She paused, letting her words settle. But we came here because someone had to stand up first. Someone had to say no. Someone had to remind you that kneeling is a choice, not a requirement. In the chamber, beings who hadn't moved without permission in centuries shifted in their seats. Beings who hadn't spoken their own minds in generations whispered to each other. The gateway is real. What's on the other side, we don't know yet. But the architects didn't leave it for one species. They didn't leave it for conquerors. They left it for anyone brave enough to open the door. The image changed to show the gateway again, floating in the darkness, pulsing with ancient power. If you want to stay where you are, we understand. Fear is powerful. Safety is comfortable. But if you want something different, if you remember what it felt like to be free, then know this. The door is open. For everyone, the transmission ended. For a long moment, nothing happened. The chamber was silent. The arbiters stared at the humans. The conquered species stared at each other. Then a single ship moved. It was small, barely larger than a shuttle. It belonged to a species called the Ven, small, fragile beings who had been enslaved for 6,000 years. The ship moved away from the council formation and drifted toward the human vessels. A second ship followed. Then a third. What is this? The fourth arbiter demanded. What are they doing? They're choosing, Jiwoo said quietly. By the time the arbiters called for order, 43 species had moved their ships to humanity's side. They were still outnumbered. They were still outgunned. But for the first time in 12,000 years, someone had stood up, and others had stood with them. The first arbiter looked down at Jiwoo with ancient, unreadable eyes. You understand what you have done. You have started a rebellion that cannot be controlled. Species will die. Worlds will burn. Maybe, Jiwoo admitted. Or maybe something else will happen. Something better. And if we destroy you all right now, every human, every ship that joined you, Jiwoo met the arbiter's gaze without flinching. Then you prove that we were right about you, and you lose the gateway forever. And someday, maybe 100 years from now, maybe 1,000, another species will stand up. And another after that. You can kill us. You can't kill the idea. The arbiter stared at her for a long time. Then it did something that no one had ever seen before. It sat back down. Very well, human. You want to negotiate? Then negotiate. Tell us what you propose. Jiwoo smiled. Behind her, 43 species waited to hear what came next. Humanity had taken its first step. Now it was time to take the next one. The first arbiter's rage was terrible to witness. The ancient being of living stone rose from its throne, and pieces of its body cracked and fell away. Its voice echoed through the chamber like an earthquake. You think this rebellion changes anything? You think 43 species can challenge an empire of 800? We have crushed uprisings before. We have shattered worlds. We have erased civilizations from history. The chamber shook with each word. The beings in the seats pulled back in fear. Even some of the humans looked terrified, but Ambassador Jiwoo Han did not move. We will gloss your planet, the arbiter continued. We will scatter your atoms across the void. We will hunt down every human who has ever lived and destroy them so completely that no one will ever remember you existed. On the main screen, Admiral Do-Hyun Park's face appeared. He was standing on the bridge of the UES Pioneer, now positioned directly in front of the gateway. Behind him, the ancient ring pulsed with blue light. You asked us to kneel, Do-Hyun said. His voice was calm and steady, the voice of a man who had faced death many times and no longer feared it. You expected fear. You've ruled so long, you've forgotten something important. And what is that? The first arbiter demanded. Fear has a half-life. It fades with time. Eventually, people stop being afraid. Do-Hyun's eyes were hard. Eventually, they get angry. He turned to his crew. Activate the gateway. Dr. Hyunwoo Kang stood at a control panel that looked like nothing humans had ever built. It was smooth and curved, covered in symbols that glowed with inner light. He had spent 3 days learning its secrets, and he still understood only a fraction of its power. But he understood enough. Activation sequence complete, he announced. The gateway began to change. The ring expanded. its inner surface rippling like water. Light poured from its center, not harsh or blinding, but soft and warm, like sunrise after a long night. The symbols on its surface began to spin, faster and faster, until they became a solid band of blue fire. And then something came through Dot. It was not a weapon. It was not a fleet. It was not an army. Dot. It was information. A signal burst from the gateway data, encoded in mathematical patterns so pure and perfect that every species in the galaxy could understand it. It flowed into every computer, every system, every device connected to any network anywhere. It was unstoppable. It was everywhere. Dot, and it contained everything. Dot. Sujin was the first to understand what she was seeing. Tears rolled down her cheeks as she read the data streaming across her screen. "It's knowledge," she whispered. "Everything the architects knew. Technology, medicine, energy generation, physics we haven't even imagined." She looked up at Jiwoo, her eyes wide. They left it all behind. All of it. For anyone who found the gateway. The information spread through the council chamber like wildfire. On screens throughout the station, species that had been conquered for millennia saw things that their rulers had hidden from them. Designs for ships that made council vessels look primitive. Medical technology that could cure any disease. Energy systems that could power entire civilizations forever. And most importantly, plans for building more gateways. The council's power had always been built on control. They controlled the technology. They controlled the resources. They controlled the information that other species needed to survive. Without that control, they were nothing. In a single moment, humanity had made that control worthless. "What have you done?" The fourth arbiter screamed. Its body of water and shadow was dissolving, unable to maintain form in its rage and fear. "Do you know what this means? Every species will have access to this knowledge. They will build their own ships, their own weapons, their own gateways. The order we built will collapse." "Yes," Jiwoo said simply. "That's the idea." The first arbiter stared at her. For the first time since she had entered the chamber, she saw something other than arrogance in its ancient eyes. She saw confusion, bewilderment, an inability to understand what was happening. "You could have taken everything," it said slowly. "You could have kept this knowledge for yourselves. With this technology, you could have replaced us. You could have ruled the galaxy." Jiwoo thought about that for a moment. It was true. With the architect's knowledge, humanity could have become the new masters of the galaxy. They could have built an empire that made the council look weak. They could have had power beyond imagination. "That's not who we are," she said. The arbiter shook its massive head. "I don't understand. What do you want?" Jiwoo looked up at the seats where 800 species sat watching. Most were still afraid. Most were still waiting to see what would happen. But some of them, more every minute, were looking at the architect data on their screens with wonder in their eyes. "We want partnership," she said. "Not conquest. Not dominion. Not slaves and masters. We want to explore the universe together. We want to learn together. We want to build something better than what you built." "It won't work," the third arbiter said. Its voice was tired now, defeated. "Species are selfish. They will fight over this knowledge. They will use it against each other. War will consume the galaxy." "Maybe," Jiwoo admitted. "Maybe you're right. Maybe we're foolish to believe that beings can work together without being forced to. Maybe freedom leads to chaos." She paused. "But maybe not. Maybe given the chance, beings will surprise you. Maybe they'll choose cooperation over conflict. Maybe they'll remember that they're stronger together than apart." She smiled, a genuine smile, warm and hopeful. "We're willing to find out." The negotiations lasted for weeks. The council did not fall, not exactly. But it changed. The arbiters remained, but their absolute authority was gone. The conquered species were given a choice: stay under council protection, or go their own way with the architect. Knowledge to guide them. Most chose freedom. President Yuna Kim addressed the galaxy in a live broadcast. She spoke of hope, of cooperation, of the long road ahead. She acknowledged that there would be difficulties, conflicts, setbacks. But she believed in what they were building. "We came to the stars as strangers," she said. "We were told to kneel, to accept our place, to be small and afraid. We refused, not because we were strong, but because we believed that there had to be something better than empires and slaves." She looked directly at the camera, speaking to every being watching across the galaxy. "The gateway is open. The knowledge is free. What happens next is up to all of us. Let's make it something worth remembering." 1 year later, 400 species had joined the new Galactic Alliance. They were building together, exploring together, learning together. It wasn't perfect. There were arguments and disagreements and occasionally real conflicts. But they were working through them. 10 years later, Dr. Hyungwoo Kang stood before a network of 17 gateways, each one connecting a different region of the galaxy. Travel that once took years now took minutes. Species that had never met were trading and learning from each other. A young Ven engineer approached him. The Ven had been among the first to join humanity. They had been slaves for 6,000 years, and now they were partners. "Doctor," the engineer said, "we've received another signal through the Gateway Network. It's coming from outside the galaxy." Hyunwoo's heart stopped. "Outside?" "Yes, we've analyzed it. The encoding matches the architect data." The engineer's small eyes were wide with wonder. "Doctor, they're still out there. The architects. They've been watching. Watching for what?" The engineer handed him a tablet showing the decoded message. Hyunwoo read it 3 times to make sure he understood. They were waiting for someone brave enough to open the door. He looked out the observation window at the vast galaxy spreading before him. Thousands of stars, millions of worlds, billions of beings. All connected now. All free. Humanity had answered fear with defiance. They had answered power with partnership. They had answered the darkness with light. And now, somewhere out in the endless universe, someone had noticed. The gateway hummed with energy, ready for the next journey. Ready for the next question. Ready for whatever came next. Hyunwoo smiled and walked toward it. The universe was waiting.